I was in a wheelchair for a little while, and then I wound up being completely bedridden for about 10 years. And I knew I had a choice. It was either give up and die or find an option.
Well, hi there, everybody, and welcome to Bold Carnivore. I'm glad you're here. Today we have a special guest, David Reid. Now, our friend David had some serious issues, but then he found freedom in the carnivore lifestyle. David, how you doing there?
I'm doing very well today. Thank you.
Wow, wow. Thank you for coming on.
Oh, I'm
Well,
happy to be here.
well, David, you have an amazing story, and I would love it if you would tell us all about it.
All right. Well, I was born in a log hospital in northern Canada. No.
That's a little far back, but all right.
So I couldn't resist the nod to an old MASH episode.
I loved it. That was great.
Uh,
But
so Basically, I've got a whole bunch of really serious autoimmune diseases. I was in a wheelchair for a little while, and then I wound up being completely bedridden for about 10 years. And I've got like five major autoimmune diseases. I was officially diagnosed in 2012 and spent some time in the hospital, and they had to do some pretty significant treatments, and I had some surgery just to kind of get me on an even keel. And then they kind of held me there with medication. I was on 19 different medications. A lot of them were some heavy duty painkillers. I was on something called hydromorph, which is like a super concentrated version of morphine.
hmm,
I was on extremely high doses. If a person that had never done painkillers like that before took one of my doses that I took in the morning, it would have killed them in an hour.
wow,
That
wow.
it was just massive doses. And as a result of the disease and some other the other autoimmune diseases and some other health concerns going on, I ballooned up to like 540 pounds.
Woo,
And I mean, I'm 6'3" and I can carry some weight, but not 540 pounds.
that's quite significant.
Yeah. So I uh I got to a point where I realized that regular Western medicine wasn't going to help me anymore. It wasn't going to get me any further than still being bedridden.
Hmm,
And because of all the medications and the painkillers and everything, my mental acuity was next to nothing. I had no memory. I could watch a TV show one day, put it on again the next day, and it was like I never saw it.
hmm.
It was just crazy. So I knew I didn't want to live like that anymore. And I knew I had a choice. It was either give up and die or find an option. So I did some soul searching, a little prayer, and I said a particular type of prayer one day. And 2 days later, I ran across Dr. Barry. And when he was talking about carnivore and not only how it can help lose weight, which is what I was kind of looking for. I had actually done keto for a while and I'd lost a fair chunk of weight on keto and I'd gotten stuck. And then I ran across Dr. Barry's video and he was talking about healing autoimmune disease with diet. And something just clicked inside of me and I went, this is the answer I've been looking for.
Hmm.
So I thought about it for a little bit. I did some more research and when I say a little more research, I've got Asperger's. So when I start researching something, I tend to go down a rabbit hole. So yeah, in a space of a few days, I probably did about 30 or 40 hours of research and
Hmm.
talked to my wife and said, I'm going to do this carnivore thing. I think it's the answer I've been looking for. She was completely against it. She thought it was going to cost too much money, which we found out later. It's actually the opposite. We spend less money now than we ever did because I was spending 150 a month on vitamins at the time,
Hmm.
just just to being able to get out of bed and be able to walk around and do stuff. And I was also using cannabis to deal with the pain that I used to use the other painkillers for. And that was costing anywhere between $300 and $400 a month for that.
Was it very effective?
Yeah, it actually worked quite well. Unfortunately, the bad thing about a lot of, whether it's prescription medications or something that's more natural like cannabis, is it loses its effectiveness after a while, and you got to slowly increase the dose
Hmm.
to get the same effect.
It's about the same case with everything. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. So I wasn't really liking that too much. I mean, I didn't like being high all the time, because for the stuff to work for me, I had to take some pretty potent stuff. And I mean, I functioned a lot better under that than I had under the morphine and stuff, but I still wasn't operating at my best.
Hmm.
And so I told my wife, I said, look, according to the research I've done, I'll probably be in a lot less pain. And, the pain's been getting a little less, because by that point, I was down to, like, I had originally gotten on keto, I'd gotten down to 340 pounds. And then COVID hit and I got kind of depressed and went off the diet, shot back up to 480, went back on keto and started losing weight again. And I got down to 391 and I got stuck. And that's when I found the carnivore diet. And I told my wife, I said, look, the pain's getting a little better. I can probably start cutting back on cannabis or even quit it altogether. And I can stop taking the vitamins. I won't need the vitamins anymore on carnivore. And she was pretty skeptical, and she was actually really against me going carnivore. But I said, well, you're not the one living like this. And, I'm going to do it.
That's a
What have I
powerful
got?
point.
Yeah. And it's like, what have I got to lose? I mean, if it doesn't work, I'm no worse off. Right.
Hmm.
So I figured, well, let's give it a shot. And in 2 weeks, I had some pretty, well, actually, at the 2 week mark, I had one thing that was really kind of shocking to me. One of the things I deal with is osteoarthritis, and it affects especially my hands and my wrists. It affects the other joints too, and my back. But that was like the thing that was most noticeable. After 2 weeks, I got up one day and went to grab the salt shaker to put salt on my food, and the pain was gone in my hands, and swelling was down, and I could actually move my fingers and hands.
Hmm.
And to me, that was just mind blowing. So we'd also had another incident that really kind of convinced my wife that maybe this was going to work. We'd had a power outage about a week before I started carnivore, and I had to take the elevator, or not, I couldn't take the elevator. So I had to walk up the stairs, and it was everything I could do. I mean, both hands on the rail, all the strength I could muster, one step at a time. Took me like 10 or 12 minutes to get up the stairs.
Hmm.
And then I couldn't move off the couch for 3 hours. I was just done. And I mean, it was just terrible. And then, I was on carnivore for just over 2 weeks, and we had another power outage. This time it was planned. They had to fix what they had jury rigged from the last one. They had waited for parts and that kind of thing. So we had the planned power outage, and I had to climb the stairs again. And this time I was able to put one hand on the rail and walk up the stairs like a normal person, just as fast as my wife did. I got to the top of the stairs. I was winded because I'm terribly out of shape, being bedridden for 10 years and muscle atrophy and all that stuff. So, it was pretty tough that way, but I sat on the couch for 10 minutes and I was fine again.
Wow.
And my wife was just stunned, and my mind was blown. And I had some scheduled blood tests that I did a few days. Well, actually, that's why I'd had to go out that day, now that I think about it. So I was having to climb the stairs that day because I'd gone and got my blood tests. A few days later, I had a telephone appointment with my neurologist, and she was looking at the results, and she's she's just stunned. I mean, she's seen me make some major changes in my health just with the vitamins and the energy healing and meditation and that kind of thing. But when she saw those blood results, and she agreed, maybe it's time we can take you off the last of your autoimmune medication.
Ooh.
And so, and that was actually 1 month in on carnivore when she told me that. So I was exactly 1 month.
That's amazing. 1 month?
Yeah, 1 month. That was absolutely stunning. Plus, the other benefit was that my weight loss restarted within 3 days. I was losing weight again.
How long were
So,
you stalled on keto?
uh, I was stalled. Let me see. In August of 2022, I think was when I got stalled, and I was still stalled in December, and that's when I started trying to research. And then I found that video from Dr. Barry. I think it was 11th or 12th of January, and I officially started the diet on January 16th. And then I had that appointment with my neurologist on February 16th.
So yeah, precisely a month.
Yeah, precisely a month. And she's that absolutely blew her mind. And she she's open to alternative therapy. I mean, she had been working with me for years as I was, trying to get out of bed and be able to walk around and do stuff. And I was trying all these different experiments, and she gave me a standing order for blood tests that I could go for blood tests every 3 months. And she was really good to work with. The guy that trained her, not so much. He actually fired me and gave me to her as a patient because I kept trying to talk about alternative therapies and vitamins and stuff, and he didn't want to hear it.
Well,
So,
that's sad. That is sad.
yeah, it is. You know, uh, I kind of understand why he's like that. He's actually one of the top myasthenia gravis specialists in the world. He's
Hmm.
actually helped to develop some of the most cutting edge modern treatments being used today.
Are they effective?
So, well, I mean, a lot more effective than they were 20 years ago or 30 years ago. So,
That's a good point.
yeah. So, I mean, he's developed some arrogance because of his successes, and does all excuse me, all these alternative therapies to him is just so much voodoo and witch doctor stuff. So, but the woman that he passed me off to, she's a little more open with that. Her heritage background, they lean a lot more heavily on, herbal medicines and stuff like that. So,
Mhm.
she was at least willing to let me try a few things and work with me on it. And she couldn't deny the results. She'd seen me make quite a bit of progress over time. I'd already been able to come off some of the autoimmune medication, just not the immune suppressants. That was the last thing I was on with her. But yeah,
Do you
so
remember what the
she's
immune suppressants were for specifically?
well, because myasthenia gravis is an autoimmune disease. So for people who don't understand autoimmune disease, what that means is your autoimmune system is working too hard. So it sees things in your system that are normal, but it thinks are not normal. So it goes and tries to kill it.
Hmm.
And all autoimmune disease is kind of based on that premise. It's just attacking different systems in the body depending on the type of autoimmune disease you have.
And you said you
And
had 5 autoimmune diseases?
I've got 5 major autoimmune diseases and then 3 lesser ones that are just related to skin conditions. Now they haven't gone into remission fully. You can see I've still got this little red patch here and a
Hmm.
little bit of redness around. But I mean, compared to what it used to be, I've got this spot on my elbow. My entire arm here used to be just solid, thick and red and patchy and oozing
Oof.
and that kind of thing.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean it's healing slowly. It was actually all gone for a little while, and then my thyroid started getting bad again. So I've been dealing with that, but
Hmm.
I've been developing some natural remedy for that. My doctor's been really trying to put me back on Synthroid, that's like a synthetic hormone to replace what the thyroid's supposed to produce.
Hmm.
But I convinced him to give me a little more time to try some other natural therapies, and I think I found something that is helping. I'm using iodine and ginger. Like I make a tea 3 times a day, and in the tea I put that ginger and iodine. I put in my water. I put like a dropper full of iodine in my water that I
Hmm.
drink every day.
And
And
you'd say you don't take coffee. Yeah.
no, like I've got this is actually what I'm drinking right now. So in this is actually the hot water, the ginger, some apple cider vinegar, which I use to help with weight loss, and Himalayan salt. And because that helps with my electrolyte balance and that type of thing. So, and sometimes I'll put a little butter in there just for a little extra fat. So
Good.
now I found out about some new stuff when I was on a live stream a little while ago talking about my thyroid issues, and then I did a couple of videos on my channel. There was a lady that reached out to me that is a lot more knowledgeable about this kind of stuff than I am. I think her name was Natalie Spencer. I think she's actually part of the community that has her own YouTube channel and stuff. So she kindly sent me some information, and I was taking a look at what she had sent me. And unfortunately, I found the two other ingredients. She recommended something called NAC and selenium. So I found some of that in the local health food store, but it had a whole bunch of fillers in it that I'm allergic to.
Oh dear.
So I went back to her and said, "Hey, do you have any sources that might have something without the fillers?" And she said, "Let me get back to you." And she got back to me the next day, and she had some information, and I just ordered them yesterday.
Well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give those a try. I also ordered some stuff. I'm gonna start making my own electrolyte solution instead of buying the Keto Chow. And because
It's
I
got
can
the
do it a
berries
lot.
brand there in it.
Yeah. I've got lots of bottles of it around.
Nice. I haven't tried it yet, but I was curious. I'm looking into it.
It works well, but that little bottle I just showed you there in Canadian dollars, that's I usually pay about $32.
Ooh.
So not
How long
cheap.
does that usually last?
Uh it depends on how much of it I'm using. If I'm using just a dropper, like one dropper full a day, it'll last a couple of months. Lately I've been using 2 droppers a day, so it was lasting about a month. So I just ordered all the stuff. I'm going to make my own from now on. One of the ingredients is coming from the States, and it's going to take, I don't know, like a month and a half to get here.
I see. I see.
So,
So while we're on the subject of moving around and feeling better and such, how about your movement before? Were you able to move very much at all? I know you said you were walking with assistance and then moving around just a little at a time, but like in
well,
general,
I
how was
had
movement?
at one point, of course, it was wheelchair and sometimes a walker on a good day. And as I went on the keto and started losing weight, and I was taking all the vitamins, I got to where I could walk around the apartment okay. I could shower with difficulty. It was kind of painful and tiring, but I could finally get to where I could walk out to the van as long as the elevator was working. And I could walk very short distances, and I could stand for maybe 5 minutes before the pain on my back was too bad. It wasn't so much that I was getting weak, it was the back pain. And so when I knew that I had to drop below 400 pounds before they would consider doing the spinal fusion surgery. And the last time I had a CT scan was back in 2019, and they confirmed that the 3 discs were gone. There was a couple more discs that were degenerating quickly. And they were expecting to have to do a pretty major spinal fusion. And so I noticed, actually, when I'd been on carnivore about 4 months, I noticed that the type of pain in my back was changing. And I just put it down to losing so much weight that maybe my center of balance was changing, and it was changing how my vertebrae were interacting with each other. So I had booked an MRI, and I went for MRI, and that was July 12th, and got the results back. And those 2 discs that had been deteriorating were now just bulging a little bit. So they were much better. And the 3 discs that had been gone were completely regenerated. They were like brand new.
Wow, are you serious?
Yeah. And I was like, this shouldn't be possible. Now, I didn't talk to my doctor about it because my family doctor is pretty darn skeptical about this stuff. And he wasn't my doctor when I had those other scans done. So I didn't even mention it to him. I'm actually going to be, I got to fill out a bunch of paperwork and stuff, and I'm going to get the actual digital copies of all these scans so that later I can actually prove it. But
that'd be good.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a process here in Canada. If you want to get copies of that stuff, you got to jump through a bunch of hoops. So,
they're your records, though, right? I mean, it's like,
yeah, they are my records, and I can get them. You just have to jump through a bunch of hoops to do it. So, and I'm going to be working on it. It's just, we're in the middle of moving. We're moving at the end of the month, so I got other things I'm worried about right at the moment.
I can appreciate that.
But I'm still looking at surgery. Just it's not going to be spinal fusion, but the arthritis did a lot of damage in my back as well. So basically, what's causing the pain I've got now is on each vertebrae you've got, like especially in the lower back, you've got these little horns that stick out on each side. And I can't remember what they're called. There's a big, long, fancy medical name for them, but they just look like little horns sticking out the side. And all the nerves that branch out of the spinal cord that come off and go to the different parts of your body, they come out between those horns. So what's happened in my case is those horns have gotten really rough and jagged. They've got a bunch of bone growth from the arthritis and the ankylosing spondylitis. So, it's all rough and bumpy, and so it irritates the nerves and causes inflammation. So what I'll be doing, I'll be going in for surgery. Not sure when yet. I'm waiting for the specialist to contact me, but so they're basically just going to have to go in and do some chiseling and some sanding and that type of thing and smooth it all out. So the mobility overall is not too bad right now. I can go and I can walk around for a ways. Right now I could probably be on my feet about 15, 20 minutes, maybe half an hour, depending on just exactly what I'm doing. If I'm sitting in a nice, comfortable chair, I'm good for the day. But if I'm one that's not supporting my back in just the right way, then, I can be limited to, 2 or 3 hours. Like yesterday, we went to a memorial. So we were on the road for a couple hours. I was able to help move a few boxes. And then we went to the memorial and we were there for a couple hours. And, the seats in the van are pretty decent. So once I got back in the van, I was in a lot better shape. But, I'm able to walk without any issues. It's actually not the lower part of my back anymore that that's what used to bother me. Now it's some spots in the middle of my back. So I suspect I've got more of that same issue that we were just talking about earlier in other parts of my back. So, but they only MRI'd the lower part. So yeah, even my hair has been changing. All of my hair used to be the same color as right here. It was all white. But now the sides are darkening up. My eyebrows used to be almost all white and they're darkening up. Same with my mustache. It's getting darker. And yeah, I mean, it's been nuts. Probably one of the biggest changes I noticed, or one of the other big changes I noticed was, like I've got bipolar. And I haven't taken medication for it for a lot of years because I didn't like the side effects of the medication. So I would just suffer through the weird mood swings, and sometimes I would get depression for days or even weeks at a time. And that's all gone now. I was about 4 months, well, about 2 months in, the symptoms were getting less, and by about 4 months carnivore, the bipolar was completely gone. I haven't had an episode since.
Wow.
And that's just crazy. And the Asperger's, the symptoms for my Asperger's are down about 75%. So
Does that ever happen? Is that normal? Is it like usual for someone to even barely reverse Asperger's?
no, it's usually once you've gotten to a particular level, you stay there or you get worse. The only people I've heard getting better or reducing symptoms are ones on carnivore.
Wow.
It's yeah, I mean, I used to have some really, really serious issues with OCD. I had even stupid stuff like toilet paper rolls. When you're done with toilet paper, you got that little tube that was in the little cardboard tube.
Hmm.
I used to be compelled. I could not stop myself. I would have to take those little tubes, fold them up really small, and stick them inside of another tube until I had them packed so full you couldn't get any more in there, and then I'd start all over again.
Wow.
And yeah, just weird little stuff. The vitamins I used to take, they came in these little foil packages, and I used to have to take those little foil packages and fold them up and tie them in a knot to throw them in the garbage. I It was just a compulsion. I couldn't stop myself.
Hmm.
And I've still got the odd little nervous tick. And I still, when I start, it's really easy for me to go down a rabbit hole even still. But all the other compulsions and stuff are gone. I mean, it was like there was actually an episode of a TV show I used to watch. What was that called? Big Bang Theory.
Hmm.
And one of the main characters, he had kind of a similar issue with OCD, and he described it very well. It's like glass in the brain that just won't go away until you do whatever it's compelling you to do. And that's gone now. I don't have that. I still have the odd little nervous tick. Every once in a while I'll cluck my tongue or something,
Hmm.
but it's not it's more of an almost unconscious thing now. I don't have that compulsion in the brain just driving me bananas kind of a thing.
So were
So,
all of these mental issues and physical issues, in your opinion, downstream from diet, or were any of them congenital?
uh, when I look back on it, I mean, I've also got dyslexia,
Hmm.
and they figured that out when I was in school as a kid. Now, they didn't have a name for it back then. They didn't call it dyslexia, but that's essentially what it was. They couldn't figure out why I was doing so bad in school when they knew I was pretty smart. So I spent months going back and forth doing tests and IQ tests and psychological tests and all this kind of stuff. And that left them even more baffled for a while because I had IQ tests as high as 137,
Oh.
and yet I did just terrible in school. And they so they figured out it was a combination of two things. One, the dyslexia, which was fairly bad, and plus they figured out I was bored with school.
Wow.
The schoolwork for me was pretty easy, and so I was kind of bored.
Hmm.
And when I was really young, like I was born with bronchitis,
Hmm.
and uh, so I had, like, all through my childhood, I had all kinds of weird diseases and stuff, and I spent a lot of time in the hospital. And in my life, I've had pneumonia 13 times,
Woo.
five times of which was double pneumonia. And so I spent a lot of time as a kid in oxygen tents. And back then, that's how they treated it. And I was also getting constant ear infections right from the time I was about 4 years old. By the time I was 6 years old, I lost about 85% of my hearing. And my mom, she was I don't know if she had a touch of Asperger's herself, but she went down a research rabbit hole and found a solution. She actually uh, or found out how to treat the scar tissue that was causing the hearing problems. The doctor, when I was 6 years old, the doctors finally figured out that it was my tonsils that were passing the bacteria back and forth between my ears and my tonsils. I've got malformed eustachian tubes, so it was like a clear path back and forth. So they took out my tonsils and the ear infection stopped.
Hmm.
So, and then my mom, her research turned up something about vitamin E oil. So she was putting vitamin E oil in each of my ears 3 or 4 times a day. And after about 8 months, I had most of my hearing back. So
Nice.
it repaired the most of the scar tissue in there. So, but during that time, I had nothing to do, couldn't go to school because back then they wouldn't accommodate kids with hearing issues.
Hmm.
So she took me out of school and taught me at home, and I had nothing else to do, so I started reading. And I had two choices of materials to read at home, unless I went to the library and got books, which we lived out, in the middle of nowhere on a farm. So getting to the library was a very rare opportunity. So I had either the Bible or other church publications, or I had the Encyclopedia Britannica. So in about 8 months, I read most of that encyclopedia set. And I've had a love of reading ever since. I do a lot of it, and a lot of research. So probably back then I may have had a touch of the Asperger's, but they didn't have a label for it back then.
Mhm.
And I always had issues getting along in school. My social skills were really terrible. So school was kind of a nightmare for me because I didn't know how to talk to people. I didn't cue on normal social cues very well.
Mhm.
So I got bullied and picked on a lot, and that kind of thing. So I didn't really enjoy school very much until I was an adult and went back to school, and then it was a little different. But yeah, now I only found out recently that I had Asperger's. I took a test. Oh, it was actually just before I started carnivore, I guess. And at first, I was a little freaked out that I tested so high on the scale, but it actually answered a lot of questions when I started looking into it. It made stuff from growing up and whatnot make a lot more sense, and it helped me to understand myself better. So it's
Mhm.
actually finding out was actually a good thing for me. But yeah, the way my life has completely changed thanks to carnivore is just amazing. It's like just a thousand and one little health issues that used to always be there that are just gone. GERD, I had GERD so bad, especially before I was officially diagnosed. So that valve just at the top of the stomach that's supposed to keep the stomach acid from going up, it
Mhm.
because of the muscle weakness, it wasn't functioning properly. So I was getting acid gas coming up into my mouth, plus I was burping up acid all the time. And it
Oof.
literally was melting my teeth. I would eat a sandwich and leave a chunk of tooth in the sandwich.
Oh my goodness.
It was
Wow, wow,
nuts.
wow.
So
Oof.
eventually I had to go and get cert. Like after I was diagnosed and I was a little stronger, then I went and had the rest of my teeth removed.
Mm.
So false teeth, top and bottom.
Wow, 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 wow. I uh I understand the experience of that acid reflux, not GERD, obviously, but I have had some bouts of that before I went carnivore myself. So I know the pain there. You wake up in the middle of the night and you
Oh,
feel like you're drowning in acid. Oh.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I used to get these I used to have to use a CPAP to be able to sleep without choking to death, kind of a thing. But part of the problem is as the myasthenia gravis got worse and my muscles could no longer swallow my saliva at night,
Mm.
then I would wake up choking, and the CPAP would actually start taking the saliva and driving it into my lungs.
Mm.
So finally, we figured out a solution. We actually got adjustable beds. So now I sleep semi-reclined, and so that I was able to stop using the CPAP. And then they gave me a nighttime medication, like a slow release medication that replaced that missing chemical, and that kept me from having all the saliva build up. But I mean, I used to wake up several times a night choking on saliva, and I'd cough up big mouthfuls into the garbage just
Mm.
to be able to breathe again. So it was
Wow.
pretty crazy.
All right. So let's move on to your work. What do you do for work, or what did you do for work?
Well, by my profession used to be, I was a computer tech. I started learning computer programming when I was a kid in 1981, and I went back to school as an adult and wanted to get some paperwork to prove that I knew what I was doing with it. So I went and took a course in I went and took a course in computer programming and systems analysis, and graduated with honors. I actually got the second highest score they'd ever had at that
Ooh.
school. but you know, part of that was because I already knew most of the material before I even started the course. So, but yeah, so that was so I got my certification there, and I started doing some computer repair. One of the instructors I had was actually a hardware tech, and he used to work for the hospitals and repairing CT machines and scanners, that kind of thing. So he started teaching me how to do actual hardware repair. And so I think 92, I built my first computer from parts and just kept with it. You know, did all kinds of different computer businesses and stuff. Mostly, you know, my own thing. Not really that much for working for other people. I mean, I've done it. I've had a few weird jobs over the years, but I much prefer working for myself, building my own dream instead of helping somebody else build theirs.
What dream did you
But
build?
well, you know, I started off just doing, you know, some mobile computer repair, and then I started doing some custom programming. Uh, did some desktop publishing for a while. Myself and another guy in a small town I was living in, we actually published a free press newspaper for a while. We did that for a few months until people saw it was a good idea, and all of a sudden we had a whole bunch of competition, and then nobody could make any money. So we, you know, it was a small town, so you know you can't support a bunch of us trying to do the same thing. So we shut that down, and then I started having some more issues with my back, and decided to, you know, I got a job in a nearby city, so I had like an hour and a bit commute. Did that commuting for a year, and then I had a fall on the ice, injured my back pretty bad
Oof.
for a while there, and so we decided maybe it was time to move to the city. And so myself, I started working for a guy doing web page designs, and started running a leased server for him. And so we were hosting the websites as well. And some stuff happened there, and I left the company, took most of the customers with me to another company, and then that company decided to shut down the whole software and website side of the business and stick to computer repair. And I didn't want to do computer repair anymore, so he offered me that side of the business. So I took that, and one of the other guys that worked there and a couple other guys that I knew from the other company, and we formed our own company. We started an actual limited company and doing web page design, hosting, online programming, and it was growing quickly. We were doing really well. I also wrote some software for small airports, doing the flight information data system. So, you know, when you see the TVs in the small airports with the incoming and outgoing flights, so I did software for that. And so I was going all over Alberta installing software in different airports and stuff. It's kind of nice. I got to do a bit of flying, because you know they would get me a ticket and fly me in, and I'd put in the software and set it up, and then they'd fly me back home. And but
That is nice.
yeah, it was pretty cool, and we were doing really well. We were making lots of money, and then I got sick and couldn't do it anymore. I was also in partnership with another guy, one of the other guys in that same business. Him and I were also building custom computers and installing networks and that kind of thing. And so I had to pull out of that as well. And yeah, it was, you know, it was unfortunate, but so I sold out my shares in the limited company, and unfortunately, the company didn't last long after I wasn't the driving force behind it anymore.
I see.
And I don't know if they just wanted to go do their own thing, or what happened. I was too sick to keep track of it. And so when I started getting better, I wanted to feel like I was useful. I mean, I'm still on disability, but you know, I make a little money on the side now. I do you know, of course I do the video editing. I edit my own videos for, I've got two different channels on YouTube, and I also edit most of the videos for another YouTube channel that's local to me. a friend of mine. But how I kind of got into that was when I started getting a little better. I couldn't do telephone tech support anymore because I was like 15 years out of date on what everybody was doing. So I would have to research it, and then I just figured, well, maybe I'll make a little video and show them how to do it. And then, YouTube was kind of a thing then. So I just uploaded it to my personal YouTube channel and said, here, watch this. This will help you solve your issue. And they liked it, and I like doing them. So that's how I got into sticking with the video editing. I started making a lot of videos. I split off a separate channel for that. And so, I've been doing that for a couple of years when I got into the carnivore diet. And when I saw the progress that I had made in just a couple of weeks, I knew, hey, I better start a channel and yeah, make sure I cover this, show people what's going on and try and spread the word so other people can find healing like I was. And so I've just kept at it. I also do some freelance work. I do the video editing package that I use. You can design plugins and stuff for it. So I design some of those plugins on a custom basis. I've put a couple together that I sell off my website. And so I've done some custom work like that for clients around the world. I've done work for people in the UK, Iceland, Australia, of course, a few places in the States, and done some. I actually did a music video for somebody down in South America. So it's just some weird stuff, in and around and everywhere. So I've always had a head for tech right from the time, when I was 15, I started learning computer programming, and I was just a natural with it. I was able to pick it up very quickly. So I kind of ran with it, and I've been, doing tech related stuff almost. That's, pretty much that's all I've done, except for a few odd things here and there. I mean, I drove tow truck for a few years, and then I left that to get back into doing computer programming. And tow truck was an interesting business. That was about the only time in my life where I got into really good shape. I was, I wasn't sick anymore at the time. I was in pretty good shape, and I was working out at the gym a lot. I was riding a lot of mountain bike, and it felt really good to be in shape. But then at some point I started getting sick, started having problems with my neck, and couldn't ride mountain bike anymore. And that was kind of the beginning. I started going downhill from there, getting sicker and sicker. And but I was able to hold it off for a few years. And I moved out of when I was driving tow truck, I was living down in the lower mainland of BC, so Vancouver area. And so I moved to northwestern Alberta here, where I'm at now.
And now you're doing something else to pursue your dream of sharing the carnivore experience, aren't you?
Yeah, actually, I've got aside from my YouTube channel, I've also got a couple of I've got a page on Facebook. It was something else, when I was doing other healing stuff. I had a different name for the group, and then when I got it in the carnivore stuff, I renamed it. And then I've also started a group specifically for doing the coaching. And I actually did my first coaching session with somebody, it must have been month and a half ago now. She used to be a nurse, and she has the same major autoimmune disease that I have, the myasthenia gravis. And she'd seen me on one of the myasthenia gravis groups talking about that I had put it into remission with diet. So she tracked me down on Facebook and friended me. And then a couple of days later, she asked me to do a consult. So she actually phoned me from her hospital bed in intensive care. And we talked about the diet and what it can do and how to go on it and how to transition into it. And she was in the hospital for about another week, and she got out, and she's been on the diet. She went on the diet as soon as she got out, and she's doing really well.
That's good.
So
That's good.
that really kind of encouraged me. So as soon as that happened, I guess it was maybe a little over 2 months ago now that I think about it, but that inspired me to actually get my certification for being a wellness coach. So I'm in the middle of doing that now. Yeah.
Awesome. Wow.
And I figured, hey, I've got got all these skills for video editing and everything that goes with it. I figured let's put this to use for this new YouTube channel, and I can also roll that into producing content for the coaching and stuff. So I'm going to be doing a website here for this stuff here pretty soon as well. But
Wow. 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 So very busy, aren't you?
yeah, it's been pretty busy. As I'm getting healthier, I'm starting to do more and more stuff. I'm trying to kind of be ready for when I no longer need to be on disability, because once I get all the back surgeries done, it's probably going to take 3 or 4. And then because I've lost so much weight, like I'm down to 322, so I've lost 218 pounds.
Ooh.
And I've got about another 70 or 80 pounds to go. And once I get down to that ideal weight, then I'm going to be looking at some surgeries for skin removal. So that's probably be 3 or 4 surgeries for that. When all that's said and done, then I'm not going to need disability anymore, and I don't want to be on disability anymore. I hate the fact that I'm taking money from the government, that they're having to support me. It bugs the living daylights out of me. I don't like it. So when I get healthy enough that I don't need it, I'm going to go off of it and look after myself. But I need to have this stuff in place to be able to do that with. So, I mean, if all else fails, I can go drive tow truck for a while, or I can go up. I mean, I grew up on a farm driving heavy equipment and stuff, so I can probably go up and get a job in a gold mine for the summer, up in the Yukon or Alaska or something. And
North
you
to
can make a
Alaska.
ton of money in a hurry. Yeah, and yeah, I've got some dreams that I want to accomplish, and we need a little money to do that. So, yeah, I might do that for a couple summers as well.
Get healthy and the sky's the limit, huh?
Yeah, there was a point in time where I was resigned to the fact that I was probably going to be in bed for the rest of my life. And I had dreams of stuff that I wanted, but I had given up on ever hoping to accomplish any of that stuff. So I figured, well, that's just not going to happen. But now, it's all back on the table.
That's
So
amazing.
my future looks completely different. And when I first found out about this diet and really started studying, I got really angry. For probably a couple of weeks. I was mad as hell. When I saw, what's been going on with how they brainwashed us about nutrition and food, and how the food companies work hand in hand with the big agriculture and the big pharma and all that to keep people sick so they can keep treating them and making money rather than healing people. I was really mad for a while, but I realized, well, the best defense against that is to educate people about it and help them see the truth and get off of that treadmill and into a healing lifestyle. So that's become my mission. I feel like it's kind of my responsibility. I was led into this diet, and I think it's my duty and responsibility to share it with as many people as I can. If I can even help one person, and I've helped more than that now, but even just helping one person would make all the effort worthwhile. But I want to help as many people as I can, and that's kind of the purpose of why I'm doing all this and why I'm accepting any interviews that come along, because I want to be able to spread the word and just help people, just like I was helped.
Wow, David, well, that is just fantastic. And your story is moving. And I am very glad and grateful that you were able to come on today.
Oh, I was very pleased to do it.
Do you have any parting words of wisdom for anyone who would be watching the video?
Oh, well, there is hope. You can get better. Don't give up. Sometimes the road to recovery is long, but it's well worth the effort. And if people want to follow up and look at my progress, see what I'm doing, you can always check out my YouTube channel. It's just at Fuzzy Tutorials. You see how I've spelt fuzzy down in my name here on the screen. And so it's just not Fuzzy Tutorials, sorry, wrong channel. At Fuzzy Road to Health.
And
And
I'll also link to that. So that'll be there.
yeah, and I've got a Facebook group of the same name. I'm also on Instagram. So if you were to go to Facebook and look for Fuzzy Road to Health, or you can just put in facebook.com/Fuzzy Road to Health, all one word, that'll get you there. And I've also got the Fuzzy Carnivore Coaching on Facebook. So should be able to search any of that and find it. I am on Twitter, or what is it called? X.
It's
now.
X nowadays, yeah.
So I'm on there as well. Though spelling is a little weird, so just do a search for Fuzzy Road to Health, and it should come up.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, David Reid, for joining us today on Bold Carnivore. And I'd like to thank all of you for watching. Like and subscribe if you will. Indeed, be bold, everybody.